Hello, guys. I am Shane Davis, 20-year comic book veteran. I'm here with Yanzi, and today is the day we are talking about the decimated comic book industry. As cons are depleting, they will be no more. So saith the Shaneth. Here we go. Comic-Con crisis, Marvel, Netflix, Sony, HBO, and Universal to skip SDCC this year. Now, this is really big news. Why? Because a lot of San Diego Comic-Con has all of San Diego actually depends on milking everybody for every dollar they're worth this weekend, along with hotels jacking up their prices, restaurants, Uber drivers coming into San Diego to just chart people around. This is like a thing. This is like a big money thing for San Diego in general. So this could be a devastating blow for the citizens of San Diego. Let's go.
So it looks like a lot of Hollywood people are pulling out of San Diego Comic Con this year. Now, there is actually a reason for it, and that's the reason they're giving over here. And that is that right now there's this thing that's happening called the Hollywood Writers' Strike. And if the strike is not resolved by 30th of June, apparently the actors are going to actually join in the strike and they're going to set up promotional events, which of course includes things like SDCC, where traditionally all H and the big booming roaring debut of the next big trailer and so on and so forth is all coming on now. But at the same time though, you guys must remember that in the past 2 years San Diego underwent this little thing called a pandemic, and as a result they had to do virtual cons, and we have seen some of their panel stream results. They were at the end of the stream 100 views, maybe that's it. Some streams that were not doing well at all. I think in a way, this is kind of like an awakening for Hollywood, right? They got to go in there, they got to chart in all their top talents, not only just the actors, but also their writing team and all the production people as well. Got to rent hotels for them, fly them in, build the booths and all that. It's a lot of money. And we know that San Diego thinking that this is going to be like the infinitely growing pie of wealth or something. And they just keep increasing the prices of the booth. DC Comics has went from a main showroom floor space to actually being outside of the main showroom in the recent years, until eventually they were like, oh no, we don't have our own floor space. We're merging together with Warner Brothers, HBO, blah, blah, blah. It's kind of a sign of things to come in Hollywood, isn't it, dear?
Yeah, well, so for my time working at Legendary, this was on the wall way before a writer's strike. Why? Because Hollywood got it caught up in the hype of Hall 8. They got in the hype of premiering their trailers at San Diego Comic-Con. And these are the problems that happen from that is, well, one, it stopped being a Comic Con and become like a Hollywood con and pop culture event. So whatever. But basically, these big Hollywood companies would premiere their trailers on top of one another. So they're all fighting for the same real estate, respectively, in that weekend. They tried cell phones, became a problem. Why? Because people record a shitty quality of the secret trailer, and then they would upload it on YouTube, where you're at today. And here's a crappy trailer, video quality, at a weird angle with some dude's head there. And then it would force Hollywood to let the trailer out to the mass audience. The problem with it is all these Hollywood studios, I mean, they fight for different weekends. So they kind of control the marketing. And what San Diego ultimately was doing is forcing them to just spill all the beans in one big shot and trip over one another on trying to get their big news out. And maybe their big news would last for about 24 hours before the next big news came out that day. So Hollywood, from my time working at Legendary, they were already starting to lean out of this. Disney had their on D23 or something like that they made, and where people were trying to pull some of their content out of this cycle. Now, the other problem with this and this big con is San Diego Comic-Con has historically pushed comics off to the corner, but comics have not been pushed out of the con. Why? Because San Diego Comic-Con fashions themselves as a nonprofit organization. That makes no sense. They make tons of money, right? You're buying Comic Cons, you're paying hotels, your badges aren't cheap. How is it a nonprofit? Doesn't make a lot of sense. Well, Artist Alley's got to be there. It's over pushed into the corner. So much real estate from something like 15 odd years ago in the San Diego Comic-Con. The real estate has been eaten up by toy companies like Mattel, a few comic book companies who they're getting out of it, and Hollywood. So where does this leave this big major comic book con event? Now, not too good. Can it sustain just on comics if it had to? Would San Diego Comic-Con learn to love comics once again? And Mark Miller has some choice words on this.
So Mark Millar says, I think the studio's not attending SDCC this year is actually a massive positive for American comics. I went twice before the show was embraced by Hollywood circa 2000, and it was both hugely attended and a genuine buzz. A Comic Con aimed at comic fans again is the ideal for me. So, interesting, because I'm going to say, unfortunately, Mark, a lot of comic fans these days are what you consider normie comic fans. They know the MCU, they know the DCEU, but they do not know the actual comic book behind them. But let's hear more words of wisdom from Mark Millar. Note, sales of American-produced comics are obviously massively down. Oh my god, he's going to speak the truth. Manga, 79%. Marvel and DC, 6%. Indie, 2%. Dogman, 13%. Well, Dogman did double what Marvel and DC does. All right. But the 1997 SDCC I went to was regarded as a crisis in sales too, and where all the meetings began for the summer 2000 rebirth. This could be a good thing. Well, one very different thing is that there's a very different attitude now in the comic book industry. It used to be about meritocracy, about saying who is the biggest and best talent we can bring in. And now it's more like, okay, who is the one we can bring in with the most relevant checkboxes we can use to satisfy our DEI, masters, and ESG score requirements.
Yeah, that's not really going to help people when they're wanting sketches, prints, or comic books being signed unless they're the next big artist. And we haven't yet seen like a big mass sales boom in the diversity hiring, the practices of Marvel and DC Comics right now. Probably not going to work out for the con.
Well, then, let's say hypothetically, if Mark Millar is correct over here, let's say cons come back, it becomes more about comic books per se. Well, there's some people who are not so happy about the idea of comic artists and comics creators being at comics cons. Well, who could that be? Oh, it's Scott Kurtz. If a comic convention hosts or sells table to people at Comics Gate, is it wrong for me to want to pressure them and kick out those people? Because I really wanna. And he hashtag Garden State Comic Fest, which over the weekend was attended by attendees like Graham Nolan, Ethan Van Sciver, Billy Tucci, Andy Smith, blah, 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 a whole bunch of very famous comic book creators who previously sold bazingas in the mainstream comic industry and now went on to be their own independent creators. But, just because they operate under the hashtag Comics Gate, now they're, I guess, worse than the devil, maybe?
Well, so this gets us to the interesting question here. If a Comic Con start to become Comic Cons once again, obviously gatekeeping is going to happen. Obviously SJWs are going to want to keep people out of Comic Cons because they make most of their money from Comic Cons. It's actually not working in comics because they make no royalties. They only get hired once a month when it's time to celebrate their skin color or whatever at that point sometimes. So I mean, they need that con circuit.
So let me quickly say this though. I'm not going to name any names, but I have spoken to some My Little Pony creators at different cons over the years, and they have pretty much largely all told me the same thing. And that's that, yeah, I don't make any money off the books. This is how I make most of my income. And there's at cons, drawing sketches and selling prints. Right.
So because certain creators, most of their money come from Comic Cons, that's very threatening to let more people in. And it's very convenient to say that person's Comics Gate or that person doesn't have the right pronouns. They should have to pay for their table. I have the pronouns. Nobody buys from me. I should not have to pay for my table. You see how this works. Unfortunately, that is a thing. That is a thing. I have known people like artists like David Finch have to pay $500 for a table at NYCC. And another friend of mine who happened to be a lesbian got theirs free, wasn't selling a bunch of comics. He was. How did that make sense? That is the comic book industry today. I hate to tell people that. So if Comic Cons started to be about comic books, period, are you going to let people in that used to sell a lot of comics, or even let people in today that are on the internet that are the wrong people, supposedly, that with their mass audience raking in six-figure campaigns, $1 million campaigns? Are you going to allow those people to come in and bring their audience into the convention? See, this is where it's like, if you were a business person, you would say, yeah, and you would actually try to see if there was some sort of cross promotion, because they obviously have an audience that's not walking in your Comic Con, hypothetically. They're an online audience. So that could be really convenient for you. But with the pressure of Scott Kurtz weight leaning on you, probably not. He'll stop it. Why not? Because what has he done lately but not fulfilled a 5-year late campaign or another 3-year
5-year late campaigns?
Two. So listen to this guy, why don't you? Anyways, Axcend Level Up campaign getting ready to launch fairly soon. Please go sign up. This is a awesome new comic coming from 9 Live Studios. If you guys will hit like, subscribe, ring the bell for notification. We'll catch you guys again with another video.